All right, welcome back to Rapid Fire Manufacturing. Today we're talking with Ben Walls. He's the Vice President at Bearings Manufacturing Company in Strongsville, Ohio. With over 23 years in the industry, Ben has a wealth of hands-on experience in production management, plant operations, and sales. He's worked his way up from the shop floor to VP. So let's dive into it. Ben, appreciate you jumping on.
Thanks for having me on, Dave.
So, with your extensive background in CNC machining and precision grinding, what's the biggest change you've seen in manufacturing over the past 2 decades?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest change is definitely going to be onboarding new personnel, getting them trained up. We have been very successful onboarding new young talent that's come outside of the industry to fill in for a lot of the old timers that are cycling out and getting closer to their exit dates. It's been a challenge, These kids want to jump onto those CNCs, and there's still a lot of companies out there like my own that run a lot of manual style equipment. That's still a really skilled trade. And we've been super successful. I mean, building a culture, I think, is super important that those guys can buy into, that they have the team around them, and that culture that's really building the assets that are the employees of a business. I think that is probably the biggest change. When I first started, it was relatively easy for us to go out there and pick up a new lathe operator, mill operator, or grinder. For the last 20 years, I would say the personnel, it's changed. There's been a major culture shift, especially in this industry.
Now, and I think you've mentioned this when I stopped by the shop at some point. So, a lot of the experienced guys, you'll have the younger guys, train with them and bounce ideas off them and get advice. Is that a standard practice you have? Like, hey, you guys are going to be mentoring a lot of these people and kind of coaching them. So when they exit, now these new guys are equipped with that knowledge.
Yeah, so when we bring guys in, we cross-train in every aspect of our shop when it comes to rotary surface grinding, standard surface grinding, IDOD, lathe mill. We have about 85 machine tools in our facility, and I have 30 operators. I would say 5 of them are looking to retire or exit within, the next 5 to 8 years. But the rest of my crew, I'm one of the oldest guys we have in the shop now, and they have been cross-trained with every one of those guys, trying to absorb as much of that historical tribal knowledge that they came from, either built within our facility or, we were able to acquire them, on the tail end of their career, and they had that experience from those other facilities. So getting them as much exposure as possible to some of that historical and tribal knowledge on how things were done back then and how we can improve on that process, add some of the new technologies to it to make their lives easier. And it also gives those younger guys that perspective. If we just brought them in, gave them a training module or training program, and had them kind of go through a really well-defined path with the structure of what machines they're going to run, and you're going to train on this, having that mentor type ship where they can go to these old timers in each individual area of our shop and getting that perspective, I think, is something that maybe a lot of companies are lacking, having that oversight from those mentors of those guys rotating out.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's a cool. Now, do you standardize some of these processes too? So, as they leave, hey, we have documentation for them to also look into as well.
Yeah, we try to as much as possible, obviously. We have a lot of work procedures, our QOP, our UOP stuff that we have documented, but it's the nuances really of the job that can take a operator and turn him into somebody that's got a job, into somebody that's going to make it a career. Once they can get or find that passion within what we're trying to accomplish, either in our business or in the industry alone, it's really that passion factor that's getting these younger guys and this younger generation really bought into a continuous improvement, process improvement, or utilizing and thinking outside of the box. Hey, we're doing it this way. I just was watching on YouTube. This guy has a channel and he was doing A, B, and C. I think if we can incorporate that, so having the two different generations working hand in hand is good. But we do try to obviously capture as much of that in documentation as possible. It's really the nuances, standing in front of that machine, listening to how it's operating, listening to how the tool's interacting with the work, that it's really cool when you see a younger guy start to capture that a bit. And once he understands it, it's definitely a shift in that individual and taking it from a job to a career.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. And I think when you invest in employees, they start to develop that passion because it's like, oh, they're investing in me. Now I can make this a career. And you start developing more passion for something as you learn about the intricacies of the machines and it's like, man, I want to learn everything about this. And then that's when you really start to, you don't even see it as work. It's like, I'm just learning all day. So that's cool. So you get to see the hands-on like passion start to blossom in these
Yeah, and
younger.
in our industry, we primarily deal with bearings. We're a bearing manufacturer, repair, and modification facility. So we're providing a ton of services throughout the bearing industry. But the bearing industry is fantastic, especially when you're trying to find those passions that you can kind of latch onto on some of the younger guys. If they're really passionate about renewable energy, there's a wind in the industry that we deal with bearings. If they're really passionate about automotive type stuff with, vehicles and they're very mechanically inclined, there's a ton of bearings in automotive. So anything that's got a rotational part, anything that's trying to reduce friction or transfer power, bearings are heavily involved in. So trying to get them to understand things, it's really easy to draw point-to-point comparisons and say, hey, this is what this bearing is intended to do. This is the modification, repair, or why we're manufacturing this. This is what it's going to go into. And being able to connect their existing passions to this potential career opportunity that they have in front of them is probably a lot easier for a company like my own in the bearing industry, that I have such a big net there.
They're used, virtually everything that's rotating is going to have a bearing. And I don't know if it was you where we had a conversation, but if not, you're getting the credit for it anyways.
Sweet.
Something like you want these guys to learn new technology. So you say, hey, go learn everything about automation or whatever. So now each person's kind of assigned with a new technology to learn, because now you're bringing in, new stuff to the shop floor.
Yeah, it definitely seems like once my guys hit a point in their education internally, their passions externally, when they're like, yeah, I'm really excited about automation. We have a guy that internally that has suggested, when we come up with our performance evaluations for all of our employees, we have an item there that talks about innovation. What are we trying to innovate? What are we trying to communicate? And the cooperation factor. We have a hydraulics guy. We have an electrical guy. We have an automation guy. We have a machine tool, the actual inserts and the tooling aspect. We have a guy that's really passionate about abrasives and grinding wheels. So having those people that have taken upon themselves to try to educate, and then, as a business, it makes it really easy for us to be like, hey, you're really passionate about this. We just found that there's a class being given, through this organization. We'd love to send you to it. So there's definitely a give and take. But as the employees see that, like you said, if we buy in, they have a better buy-in, and it builds a stronger community.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can see a lot of value with that. And I would imagine the conversation they're much more engaging too, because it's not just, hey, this one guy knows this subject. It's like everyone has a little bit of knowledge on certain subjects. So you bring more value to these conversations, especially for planning in the future. And now, so someone who's worn, you've worn many hats from production manager to VP. How do you keep up with operations running smoothly while balancing both sales and the shop floor demands?
It's a struggle. I'm not going to tell you I got a perfect plan on how to do it. Every day's different. But with a facility like ours, because we're definitely service oriented, we try to operate like a 6 o'clock company. If somebody calls me at 3 o'clock and they need it out by the end of the day, we pull our team together and we try to come up with the best possible solution. Our motto here is we help you keep your customers. Our sales team, we actually recently switched all of their titles to project managers, because they're really not selling a product. We have a service we're offering. We're here to give education, and we're here to figure out the problems that our customers have. So we really went away from that sales mindset more to a service and education mindset, so we can actually service and help the industry move forward.
Okay, that's interesting too. So instead of a sales, you're providing value, a solution. Yep. So you're value selling, and I think that's incredibly important too. No, that's really cool. Yeah,
so it gives us that flexibility that we need to really go out there. And as a small company, we don't have a ton of red tape, so we can really juggle a lot of different things at once. Like you said, I got a ton of different hats. Last week, I was out there running a machine. I was back on a grinder. And this morning, right before I jumped on, I was across the street at a warehouse. I was helping rig up a 22-foot diameter bearing going out to India for a tunnel boring project. So you fill all the holes, you keep all the water out of your boat as possible.
Yeah, I saw that bearing actually.
Yeah.
When I was in the shop. That thing
is massive. It's leaving today.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, that concludes the episode. Ben, thank you so much. For those of you watching, stay tuned for more insight from experts. So thank you so much, Ben.
David, appreciate it, man. Thank you. God bless.